Turn it over to you for your opening statement.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
So, well, first of all, thanks for coming out again today, and appreciate that you guys have been out all year. Howard, great to have you as well. Are you going to broadcast that?
No. Appreciate it.
If you need proof from your boss you didn't steal this from somebody else's feed.
There you go. I have it.
You're being personally recognized.
Thank you.
So, again, just to wrap up the season, and I think a lot of this is you're really looking forward, but certainly frustrated with our record after earning a bowl bid a year ago, and certainly felt our program had a lot of momentum. In last year's bowl game certainly helped us recruit, I think, a great recruiting class. And speaking for the whole program, I think everyone is disappointed. I think sometimes in the process of building a program, sometimes you take a step back before you go 2 steps forward. And I'm very, very confident that's the track that we're on. When I accepted the job at Bowling Green 2 years ago in December of 2008, the athletic director, Greg Christopher, said to me, he said, your first year you have a chance. He goes, your second year is going to be a real challenge. And I've certainly reminded him of that conversation a couple of times this year. But we knew the second we got here and looked at the depth chart and we looked at our players and saw where we were, that we knew year 2 would be a challenge. We graduated 22 seniors last year, 16 senior starters. We lost a great quarterback, the most productive receiver in the country. We graduated 3 starters on the O-line. We graduated 4 in the secondary. And I've said this many times, the thing that has really, I think, slowed down the progress of our program is this year, what should have been our 5th-year senior class, our 4th-year class, and our 3rd-year class, we had 31 players leave the program before we arrived. And we played this year, most of the year, with 44 scholarship players. We had 76 guys on scholarship. We redshirted 19 players, and that was my decision to do that. We had 5 guys that we lost for the majority, if not all the year, to season-ending injuries. And there's 8 guys on the team that, I don't know how else to categorize it. They were recruiting mistakes. That they don't play any role for us. And so we played the majority of the year with 44 scholarship players. This is not an excuse, but these are real numbers. At times this year it was difficult. At away games, we didn't even have a whole travel group to bring with us. There's times we didn't bring everybody we could just because we didn't have enough people to bring. But this is getting fixed. It's getting fixed now. The numbers problems you can't fix overnight. We had an APR issue. That thing is very close to being solved. We've had very little attrition in our first 2 recruiting classes. And again, it's not a problem that you could fix overnight because you're only allowed to sign 25 players a year. We've signed the maximum amount the first 2 years, and our numbers next year are going to finally be more in line with what a Division I college football program should look like. In my experience as a head coach, I experienced these growing pains and these challenges before, both at Fordham, both at Richmond. In both places, we built a championship program, and I'm very confident the same thing's going to happen here. There's no reason why we shouldn't win at Bowling Green. We've got great facilities. We've got a good fan base. It's a fertile recruiting area. I'm more confident than ever that we can win here and win big. After last season finished, we met as a staff, and we anticipated that this could be a challenging year, and we had a philosophical decision to make. We could try to patch things for 1 year and take a bunch of junior college players, or we could try to build this thing on a very solid foundation and recruit mostly high school players, and that's what we did. And we redshirted most of those guys. So, we're building it on a solid foundation. We want to recruit mostly high school players who are going to be 4-year players, so we don't have a ton of turnover in the program. And when we start winning again, we want to be able to sustain it. I think it's very hard to do that if you're always relying on junior college players. And I'm not saying that we'll never sign a junior college player, because I think from year to year there might be a particular hole that needs to fill. But we certainly don't want to do that on a wholesale basis. And we avoided that temptation last year, and I don't regret it, because I think our program will be better next year and into the future because of that decision. You know, there's a lot of building blocks to building a championship program, and the heart of it is recruiting. And, you know, this year we had 3 classes that the numbers were low, that now next year becomes 2 classes. You know, our first 2 recruiting classes, I think have already proven to be pretty good classes, and I think they're only going to get better as they get more experience in another off-season program. I'm certainly confident we're going to sign another good recruiting class this year, and then you got 3 solid classes back to back to back, and I think that will give us a good, solid foundation to move forward from. I think in a lot of ways we've changed the culture of the program in a positive. Our APR numbers and our academic numbers are all trending that way. We have not had the attrition that the previous 3 classes had, and hopefully we can keep that thing moving forward. You know, I certainly feel that the discipline and the work ethic and the accountability in our program is better. And in my experience is that will eventually translate to wins. It never happens as quick as we would like it to. It never happens as quick as the fans want it to, but it will happen. You know, and I think some of the positives from this year is we played a bunch of young players. The experience, or lack there of experience issues that we dealt with this year, we're not going to have to deal with as much. You know, at one point I think we had 23 true or redshirt freshmen in our 2 deep. All those guys are back. You know, starting this spring, we're going to have probably somewhere between 33 and 35 of our 2 deep will have 2, 3, or 4 years of eligibility left. And you know, we're going to have a really solid foundation. Obviously, you know, we're still not going to be an experienced team next year, but we'll be much more experienced. And I think we have some very, very talented players in our freshman class, in our redshirt freshman class, that will turn out to be outstanding players. And again, I can't tell you exactly who those guys are, but there's enough of them. If they develop, you know, I think we'll have some very high-level players. And I think that's what you need in this league. That you need a lot of solid football players, but you need probably 3, 4, or 5 on each side of the football that are difference makers that allow you to get over the top and be a championship team. And I think there's that group of guys in the early classes. So again, you know, we're certainly disappointed but not discouraged. Firmly believe that we're going to be a very good football program here in the near future. And I'll take any questions you may have.
You said that you kind of envisioned this year as being a challenging year. Mm-hmm. What do you think about next year?
There's no question we should be better, just because, you know, we broke in 17 new starters this year. And I think a lot of our mistakes were certainly attributed to inexperience. And we'll have more numbers. I mean, the numbers issue is the #1 problem we've dealt with here for 2 years. I mean, it's been 3 straight years, Coach Brandon's last year and my first 2 years, that our scholarships have been in the mid-70s because of APR. And those numbers are going to start coming back. And it's very, you know, we were fortunate a year ago. We played most of the 2009 season with 48 scholarship players, but they were more experienced players, and we had very few injuries. This year we played with 44. Most were inexperienced, and we had more injuries. So, you know, it's part of football, but it's, you know, the APR hit in 2008 because we had big senior classes and you can only sign 25 players a year. You know, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And we're finally next year going to start climbing out of that hole because we don't graduate as many seniors this year. You know, we're no longer under sanctions, and so now we can start adding to the 76 and not, you know, give you an example. Last year we were in 76 and you can sign 25, but we graduated 22 seniors. So you're really only adding 3. And this year, because our senior class isn't as big, we are adding more onto the 76. So next year we should be at worst in the low 80s. And you're allowed to have 85, and that's what most programs have.
Coach, take a look back at last year, or this year that's just ended. Will you take, first of all, a word about your kids who received all league honors?
Oh, it's a great honor for them. I mean, Kamar Jordan is a first-year player to be All-League, first-team All-League. Certainly Dwayne Woods, I thought, had a good year. I thought he was deserving of being first-team. But for a first-year starter to be All-Conference, Eugene Cooper, Brian Wright, first-year players. Then third-team Chris Jones, I thought, had a very solid year. It was great to have him recognized. And certainly Willie Jeter had a great career, and probably as much as a career achievement as it is an individual year achievement. But in the last 2 years, only 2 teams in the MAC have had less all-conference players than us. And that's where our recruiting has to kick in. At this meeting next year, I want to talk about the 13 guys that made all-conference, or the 18 guys that made all-conference. Last year it was only 4 players, and we were 6-2 in the MAC. This year it was 6 players, but only 4 of them were positional players. So, I'm proud of those guys, but I want it to be 18. I want it to be 15. And that's what our guys have to push really, really hard this offseason, that, they need to upgrade their level of play. And this is going to be a tough offseason. I mean, this year, the record's not acceptable. And we're going to have to pour everything into it as coaches and everything into it as players, and to make sure that this doesn't repeat itself. And again, I'm confident that will happen.